The world is moving faster than anyone can follow, and in the noise of collapsing certainty and rising confusion, a chilling realization begins to surface, because what the Prophet Muhammad described 1400 years ago sounds less like distant prophecy and more like a mirror held up to our world today. A world where truth twists, hearts harden, and the ground beneath society trembles in ways that feel almost too precise to ignore. And if these signs truly echo our time, then the question isn't what's coming next, but whether we are ready for the truth hidden in those ancient words. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching this from. And if these insights speak to you, make sure to subscribe so you never miss what comes next. There is a moment recorded in the teachings, a moment when the Prophet spoke of an era that would overwhelm those living in it, an era where changes come so rapidly that people would feel swept away, unable to catch their breath. Imagine his companions listening, wondering how a world could transform so dramatically, not knowing that the description was painting a scene centuries ahead, a world like ours, where shifts in culture, morality, and technology happen overnight. He described a time when life would accelerate until years feel like months, months like days, and days pass in the blink of an exhausted eye. The deeper meaning behind this wasn't about clocks or calendars. It was about the pressure that crushes the human soul when society speeds up faster than the heart can follow. In 2025, people talk endlessly about burnout, overstimulation, lost purpose, and a strange emptiness that no achievement can fill. And this is where his words begin to echo like a warning carried through centuries. What makes this even more striking is how the teachings describe humanity becoming overwhelmed not just by speed, but by constant noise of opinions, arguments, temptations, distractions, all pulling a person away from clarity. It's as if our modern world was crafted to fulfill every detail. Notifications lighting up every second, information bombarding the mind, opportunities to sin appearing every time a screen unlocks. And in this chaos, many feel spiritually suffocated, unable to think deeply, unable to feel sincerely, disconnected from the inner stillness they once had. This overwhelming life was foretold not to scare us, but to guide us, to remind us that when the world speeds up, the soul must slow down and anchor itself, or it becomes lost in a storm that only grows stronger with time. But if the first warning was about a world racing beyond control, the next one hits even harder. The prophet described a future where distance becomes near, where people can see and speak to each other from far corners of the earth with ease, yet the hearts between them grow colder. It sounds poetic, almost metaphorical, until you realize that this is exactly the reality we live in. A world where someone can video call across continents instantly, but can't maintain peace inside their own home. Families sit together while scrolling past each other. Friendships drift even while they stay connected online, and the illusion of closeness replaces real connection. The teachings warned that in such a time, loneliness would rise even in crowded places, because physical proximity would no longer guarantee emotional or spiritual closeness. People would feel unseen despite constant attention, unheard despite endless conversation, unloved despite oceans of validation. There is a haunting wisdom in this. When the heart drifts from its creator, it loses the ability to form deep bonds with creation. The world gives us more ways to connect, but fewer reasons to care, more communication, but less understanding, more access, but less intimacy. And so humanity becomes crowded, yet isolated, loud, yet empty, connected, yet alone. The prophet warned that this spiritual distance would spread like a shadow over society, making relationships fragile, families fractured, and communities hollow. Not because love disappears, but because distraction replaces devotion, convenience replaces commitment, and temptation replaces loyalty. And this is where the teaching strikes hardest. The shrinking of distance was never meant to be a celebration of technology, but a sign of a deeper crisis. Because when the world becomes small, the heart must grow larger to handle it. Yet what we see in 2025 is the opposite. The world is smaller than ever, but the heart of humanity feels tighter, more pressured, more conflicted. People fear missing out on everything, yet feel fulfilled by nothing. They can reach the world instantly, but struggle to reach their own peace. And in this contrast, the ancient words of the prophet begin to sound less like history and more like revelation unfolding before us. There was another moment in the prophet's teachings where he described a future overflowing with knowledge, yet starved of understanding. A time when information would spread so widely and so quickly that people would think they were informed, while actually drifting further from truth. When you look at the world today, it feels as if every second brings something new. A post, a headline, a warning, an opinion, a controversy, an endless river of content rushing through everyone's minds. People know a little bit about everything, but understand almost nothing in a way that brings peace or certainty. And what's terrifying is that this is exactly the condition he described. Knowledge so abundant that it becomes noise, drowning the heart instead of guiding it. We scroll, we skim, we click, we absorb thousands of ideas a day, and yet somehow remain confused, anxious, undecided about what truly matters. The teachings warned that in such an age, people would mistake exposure for wisdom and speed for depth, and the result would be a society full of opinions, but empty of direction. The mind becomes overstimulated, the soul becomes undernourished, and people begin to feel as though they're sinking in information they can't escape. This flood was never meant to elevate us. It was a test to see whether we could cling to truth while the world around us dissolves into endless distraction. What makes this even darker is how the teachings describe the erosion of true scholarship. The prophet warned that knowledge would be lifted, not by books disappearing, but by sincere and trustworthy teachers becoming rare. Today, anyone can claim authority online. Anyone can preach, debate, argue, interpret, and influence without accountability or depth. Voices multiply, but clarity fades, and people end up following personalities instead of principles, trends instead of truth. This chaotic landscape leads to confusion, doubt, and division as people struggle to distinguish between wisdom that elevates and content that manipulates. The world becomes louder but less true, smarter but less guided, connected but spiritually severed. And as this cycle continues, society drifts into a fog where certainty feels impossible, and everything becomes a matter of opinion, even the things that once anchored humanity with absolute clarity. Then comes the next sign, one even more unsettling. The rise of deception so powerful that truth becomes almost unrecognizable. The prophet explained that a time would come when lies spread easily, when falsehood travels faster than truth, and when people trust those who mislead them while doubting those who genuinely try to guide them. Look around today. Distorted realities dominate every space. Images are edited beyond recognition. News is manipulated for clicks. Opinions are disguised as fact, and people carefully curate their lives to show everything except the truth. This wasn't just a warning about dishonesty. It was a warning about a world drowning in illusions, a world where appearance becomes more important than sincerity. People learn to wear masks, not physical ones, but emotional and spiritual ones, presenting confidence while hiding insecurity, projecting happiness while battling emptiness. posting perfection while privately collapsing. The teachings describe this era as one where deception becomes normal, even expected, until society no longer sees it as wrong. The Prophet also said that leaders would be untrustworthy, and those lacking integrity would be given authority, while honest people are sidelined or silenced. This is visible across the world. Corruption rewarded, sincerity mocked, truth ignored in favor of convenience. And the danger of such an era is not just the dishonesty itself, but the effect it has on humanity. People begin to crave the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. They cling to illusions that soothe them, even when reality is collapsing around them. The world becomes a stage where everyone performs, but few live with authenticity in this sea of deception. The teachings warn of a deeper crisis, moral confusion so severe that right and wrong begin to blend together. Falsehood becomes fashionable. Immorality becomes entertainment, and sincerity becomes something people mock. When deception grows, hearts darken. When hearts darken, the soul loses its compass. And when the soul loses its compass, society collapses into chaos without even realizing it. We witness this now, people arguing passionately for things that destroy them spiritually, celebrating ideas that hollow them out, chasing illusions that leave them more and more empty. What was once shameful becomes admired. What was once sacred becomes trivial. And what was once clearly harmful is now defended as freedom. This blurring of truth and falsehood is one of the most frightening signs, because when a society can no longer see clearly, it cannot save itself. But the teachings were not merely predictions. They were warnings meant to awaken the heart. A world full of lies is not unstoppable. A world drowning in misinformation is not unbreakable. And a world that elevates deception can still be reclaimed by those who cling to truth with courage and sincerity. There is a moment in the Prophet's teachings where he described a future overflowing with wealth, where money would become so widespread and so accessible that people would no longer struggle to earn it, but would struggle to feel anything from it. Today, we live in a world where the modern lifestyle places comfort within reach of almost everyone. Food delivered in minutes, entertainment at the tap of a screen, luxuries becoming basic expectations. Yet despite this abundance, the human heart feels more starved than ever. People complain not of poverty, but of emptiness, not of hunger, but of disconnection. And this is exactly the paradox the Prophet warned about. He explained that near the end of times, wealth would increase so much that people would forget its purpose, chasing it endlessly without ever feeling satisfied by it. This is not a prediction about currency, it's a revelation about the human soul. Because when wealth becomes abundant, gratitude often becomes scarce. And when gratitude dies, joy dies with it. You can see this everywhere today. People with more choices are more stressed. People with more possessions feel more anxious. People with more freedom feel more lost. The teachings describe how wealth, without spiritual grounding, becomes a burden disguised as a blessing, a distraction disguised as success. Instead of lifting the heart, it weighs it down under expectations, comparisons, and endless desires that multiply faster than they can ever be satisfied. The more people gain, the more they want, and the more they want, the less they feel. This cycle was foretold not to condemn wealth, but to expose the danger of pursuing it without purpose. Because the heart was never designed to find peace in numbers, it finds peace in meaning, gratitude, charity, humility, and remembering that everything we own will one day slip through our fingers like sand. The teachings describe another powerful sign: people becoming obsessed with lifestyle, outward appearance, and social status. Homes become larger, but families grow colder. Cars become faster, but contentment moves slower. People fill their lives with objects, but leave their hearts empty of connection. The prophet explained that when wealth increases, so does vanity, competition, and the urge to impress others, even if that means losing oneself in the process. And isn't this exactly the age we live in now? People upgrade their lives endlessly, yet feel no upgrade within their souls. They chase validation from strangers while neglecting the peace they could find with God. This spiritual drought grows silently, because material success convinces a person they are doing well, even when their heart is collapsing quietly in the background. But the prophet didn't warn only about wealth. He also warned about something far more dangerous: the collapse of morals in a world seduced by desire. He described a future where shamelessness becomes a normal part of everyday life, where sins that once made people tremble become entertainment and trends. Today, we see it everywhere: modesty mocked, purity dismissed, temptation glamorized, and decency treated as outdated. This is not accidental. It is exactly the kind of moral erosion he described: a slow, gradual decline where society normalizes what once shocked it, celebrates what once concerned it, and embraces what once harmed it. And the most frightening part is that this change doesn't happen through force. It happens through comfort, convenience, and constant exposure until the heart becomes numb. People lose their sense of shame not because they are evil, but because repetition makes any behavior feel normal. What was once rare becomes common, and what becomes common eventually appears harmless. The teachings warn that in such a time, holding on to truth would feel like holding burning coal, painful, difficult, and emotionally exhausting. The decline of morality is not just about personal sins. It affects entire societies. The prophet explained that when immorality spreads openly, it weakens communities from within, creating families without trust, relationships without loyalty, and individuals without spiritual protection. We see these consequences today: relationships falling apart faster than they begin, people unable to commit because desires overpower discipline, families torn apart by infidelity or secrecy, and communities divided by selfishness and pride. Modesty is dismissed as old-fashioned, integrity is mocked, and patience is viewed as weakness. This is exactly the condition described: an age where people no longer recognize the beauty of obedience or the peace that comes from restraint. Instead, pleasure becomes the new god, and the worship of desire replaces the worship of the one who created us. The teachings warn that this shift is one of the most dangerous signs of all, because when the heart chases desire without boundaries, it destroys itself without even realizing what it's losing. Yet even in this, the teachings offer hope. They remind us that those who protect their faith in times of darkness are more beloved to God than entire nations who lived in comfort. They remind us that moral clarity is still possible, even when the world feels upside down. And they remind us that every act of modesty, every moment of resistance, every time someone chooses purity over temptation, they become a light in an age of shadows, seen by God even if unseen by the world. There is a powerful shift in the teachings when the warnings begin to turn into promises. Promises meant to remind humanity that even in the darkest times, God never leaves people without a path. The prophet spoke of a future where holding on to faith would feel unbearably heavy, where the world's distractions and temptations spread so widely that sincerity becomes rare and purity becomes difficult. But in that same breath, he described a group of people living in the midst of chaos, whose hearts remain loyal to truth, whose souls refuse to bow to the illusions around them. They may not be many, they may not be loud, they may not be celebrated, but they shine like lanterns in the night, preserving the light of faith when the world around them dims. And astonishingly, he said that the reward for these people would match the weight of their struggle, meaning that one moment of sincerity in an age of corruption is worth more than entire lifetimes of ease in eras of righteousness. These are the ones who stay honest while dishonesty spreads, who guard their modesty when shamelessness dominates, who protect their hearts while others surrender theirs to desire. Their patience becomes a shield, their resilience a form of worship, and their existence a proof that goodness can survive even when the entire world seems to be falling apart. What makes this promise so moving is that it speaks to people today more than ever. Every person who refuses to compromise their faith, every person who chooses prayer over temptation, every person who tries to be kind in a world that rewards cruelty, they are living signs of this prophecy. They are proof that no matter how dark the world becomes, God always raises souls strong enough to carry the light. And the teachings describe these believers with such honor that it brings comfort to anyone who feels spiritually alone. He said that those who remain firm in times of confusion will earn the reward of 50 companions, not because they are better, but because the weight they carry is heavier. Faith in our time is not effortless. It is an act of courage, and courage, when done for God, is written with ink that never fades. But strength and sincerity are only half of the message. The teachings shift again, urging humanity not just to witness the signs, but to understand their purpose. The prophet explained that the signs of the last days were not meant to inspire fear or despair. They were meant to awaken hearts, to shake people from spiritual sleep, to remind them that this world is temporary, that its pleasures are fragile, and that the real journey begins when this one ends. In a time when society pressures people to chase success endlessly, he reminded them that true success is measured not by wealth or fame, but by the state of the heart when it meets its Creator. These teachings call people back to clarity, to purpose, to meaning, urging them to clean the dust from their hearts before it becomes too heavy to remove. And this call is not directed only at scholars or saints. It's for every single person who feels lost, tired, overwhelmed, or spiritually disconnected. Then comes the most powerful message of all: return. Return to God before the world returns you to Him. Return to the prayer you've been delaying, to the repentance you've been postponing, to the sincerity you've been afraid to embrace. These signs were given not as a countdown, but as a reminder that life moves fast and the heart cannot survive on distractions. They are signals placed along the road of time, warning humanity that drifting too far from the Creator leads only to emptiness. And yet, no matter how far someone has drifted, the path back is always open, wider than the darkness around them, brighter than the sins behind them. The prophet taught that God's mercy outpaces every era, even the most chaotic ones, and that those who turn back to Him are welcomed with forgiveness so vast it erases everything that came before. This final call is the heart of the message. The future is not defined by the signs. It's defined by how you respond to them. Whether the world is entering a new chapter or repeating the same ancient cycle, the real question is what you will do with the time you have. Will you follow the noise of the world or the whisper of your soul? Will you chase the illusions that vanish or the truth that lasts forever? These teachings invite you to walk with purpose, to protect your heart, to live consciously, and to understand that every moment you choose faith in a faithless age is a victory written for you in the unseen. The signs are not there to frighten you. They are there to remind you that you were meant for more. and that God is closer than any chaos around you.